Hi everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for being here, and we really appreciate the concern that your attendance communicates about the struggle that the people of the English-speaking regions of Southern Cameroon are experiencing. As you probably know, there's been a war going on there in the past 2 years. That war is basically a war of suppression, where there's a movement that's struggling for for dignity, and in the past year and a half, there's been an escalation of excessive violence by the Cameroon military, but from the perspective of the people that live there, who refer to their territory as Ambazonia, this is just sort of part and parcel to a pattern of aggression that has continued over decades. We know that because the Ambazonian people have been organizing for independence and autonomy for decades. For the vast majority of that time they've been organizing, they've had a nonviolent struggle that was quite explicitly nonviolent, and to the degree that they had a slogan that said the argument, the force of argument, not the argument of force. That was the slogan. But in the last year and a half, they've experienced such a degree of escalation that there has been armed response, defensive response from the community, and that's why we're here today, because we're in a crisis. This coalition convened in advance of the 4-day session of the UN Human Rights Council, which met at the end of February and into March. This coalition of peace organizations, human rights organizations, faith organizations convened and formed a petition calling on that body to act. And today we're going to talk about what action they did take, put that action in perspective, and share with you also what next steps we believe are necessary. My name is Amy. I'm a member of the Community of Living Traditions, which is an affiliate member of the Fellowship of Reconciliation, one of the signatories to this petition. And I'm just going to explain, briefly introduce all of our speakers here, and then I will hand it over to them to unfold this alarming and urgent situation for you. First, we're going to hear from Shirley Fabre, who is a member of the Muslim Peace Fellowship, and also a member of the Community of Living Traditions. And Shirley was in Geneva during the 4-day session of the UN Human Rights Council as a representative to the United Nations on behalf of the International Fellowship of Reconciliation. So she's going to share with you what happened and put that in our position on what happened. Following that, we're going to hear from Meg Starr, who is a member of Resistance in Brooklyn and also a longtime political prisoner solidarity organizer, who's going to talk a little bit about the imprisoned leadership of the Ambazonian struggle, and also the problem, put that in perspective as to political prisoners worldwide. And following that, we're going to hear from Ajane Okwu-Egbe, who is an artist, activist, who is involved with the Amazonian Prisoners of Conscience Support Network. He's going to talk a little bit more about the conditions that the people in prison are facing, and especially some alarming cases that we've recently learned about. And following that, we're honored to hear from Baba Sekou Odinga, who is a former political prisoner from the United States, who, since he's been released, has continued to be a fighter for the rights of political prisoners worldwide. And so he's going to make some comments about putting what we've heard about what's going on in Ambazonia into perspective. And following that, we will hear from Eben Egbe, who is also with the Amazonian Prisoners of Conscience Support Network, as well as the Way Forward Network. And he will be sharing some other news about what's going on the ground, what forms of violence and abuses the people are struggling under. And then we would ask that you would hold your questions until the end, then we'll open it up for questions. And with that, thank you so much again for being here. I'm going to turn it over to my sister Shirley.
you, Amy. Good morning, everyone. So I'm here to talk to you guys a little bit about.
I guess we're fine.
I hope that's not how I sound. Talk to you a little bit about the United Nations Human Rights Council's 40th session in Geneva. We went there, we asked the United Nations Human Rights Council, before we went, we asked them to mandate a fact-finding mission to Ambazonia. And the reason that we thought that this was necessary is because the UN High Commissioner for the Human Rights Council had twice requested access by from the Cameroon government and had been denied that access. We felt that it was important to make this ask because we wanted the Human Rights Council to document the violence that is going on the ground. And also because we have seen these things happen before in several other places, this type of violence, this type of escalation. And we've also seen what happens when the world turns a blind eye to this violence as it escalates. This doesn't, like appeasing these governments or trying to work with the governments that are committing these atrocities in some way doesn't end the violence, it doesn't even stop it. It actually tells them that it reinforces to them that they can continue to do this, and then you end up with mass atrocities and so many people dying. And so before we have numbers that get to, like the point of like mass atrocity, we should do whatever we can to stop it as soon as possible. At the end of the HRC 40, the UK and 37 other countries of the 47 voting states of the Human Rights Council issued a statement urging Cameroon to accept, quote, the offer of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to conduct an urgent assessment mission to the Northwest and Southwest regions, and engaging with any further regional-led initiatives to find a path towards peace and reconciliation. The significance of this UK statement is that Cameroon had just recently joined the UN Human Rights Council, and at the moment of their joining, or at the beginning of them joining the Human Rights Council, a majority of their peers are communicating to them this message, to them at the beginning of their tenure. So I felt like that was a very strong statement, a very strong way to start things off. So we celebrate this, but we celebrate this as a minor victory because it comes with no firm commitments or dates set on the Cameroonian government. One concern that we also have with this statement is that it maintains the stance that there is equal violence on both sides. So this is an avoidance technique and an inaccurate picture of the reality on the ground. According to reports from people on the ground, such as the US government and the European Union, as well as people fleeing the violence like refugees and the internally displaced, they have all communicated and reported that the Cameroon government is primarily responsible for an overwhelming majority of the violence. This is not to justify any abuses that might have taken place from the Ambazonian ranks, but it means to say that proportionality in the coverage is needed, and that was somewhat lacking in the UK statement, which again leads to the reason why we need a mission to establish facts on the ground. Still, it was a victory because they may have not done that much without the pushing that our coalition did in their direction, and we continue to urge them, as well as the rest of the international community, to continue to put pressure on the Cameroonian government, and for our allies to continue to help us and raise awareness about this situation, because we've seen in other places, once the more people that know what's going on, the better it usually is for the situation. Thank you.
Following up on what Sister Shirley has brought to your attention about the Geneva Commission, I am going to bring up the fact they it was wonderful that they mentioned 2 of the political prisoners from Ambazonia. However, that's the tip of the iceberg. It's great that Mancho and Penterens were mentioned, a journalist and a vice principal who were part of the human rights struggle, but there are so many more prisoners. So I'm going to start as a member of the Religious Society of Friends. I'm going to ask you all to take a minute of silence to hold the countless people who are either displaced, have watched their village burn, or have become one among the people brought before either military government, detained, or in many other ways established as political prisoners within the movement for a humane Ambazonia. And to them and their struggle, we hold you all in the light today. As a young human rights activist, I once met a man who had been vacationing across the bay from, where was Mandela held? What? Robbins Island. He was vacationing there. And he said, and he had this agony of spirit. He was like, I laid on the beach. I really didn't know how many people were there. He didn't know that it was the beginning of the liberation movement. And, you know, we don't want to be those people. We want to be the people who find out what's going on. So as part of helping do that, I'm going to bring up a few more people. As the movement progressed past the stage of demanding equality with French Cameroon to the point of asking for their own land and independence, they formed a coalition government. And these people were forced to flee to Nigeria and ask for political asylum there. While they were in and they were at a hotel in the midst of their demand for political asylum, the Nira Hotel. And they're now known as the Nira 10 because and the president, actually, of the future Ambazonia, Julius was there. And the Nigerian secret police took all of them back to the French Cameroon, where they've been held. Their court dates have been canceled. They have rarely, seen the light of day and had access to their lawyers. And, the irony of this is that Julius is known as the Martin Luther King of the movement, the person urging for a broad, loving, and non-violent movement. Now, in its stages of development, as a Quaker, I want to say, my ancestors on the Underground Railroad carried guns. And I respect also those young people who have reached a progression in the struggle where they feel the need to take up arms. And I recognize a complete difference between the French Cameroons raising a village and a young person with arms going into the bush and targeting military installations. I consider that a very different situation in terms of nonviolence. But I want to let you know that recently there was a quick minute where the Nigerian government went and in their high court admitted that the actual process of taking these asylum seekers from the liberation movement back to the Cameroon, and it violated both their own Nigerian laws about asylum seekers, UN laws about asylum seekers being brought back to the country where they were, where danger is waiting them, and also the African Commonwealth laws as well. So tremendous laws were violated, and I want to go on to hear people who are much more experts in the struggle. So I'm going to just end, with this, sending love and respect to the people who are indomitable, even in their refugee camps in Nigeria, in the streets, continuing to do activism, to the wives of the Nero 10 who went around the world calling for their freedom, to all of them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to continue briefly with the situation of the prisoners. As most of us are already aware of, their health situation is despicable, to say the least. The prisons are not only overcrowded, but their nutritional needs are lacking so much that most of them are emancipated. A lot of the prisoners do not even have beds to sleep on, so they have to stand up the whole night and the whole day. And if one of the other prisoners feels sorry for them, they will stand up and let them sleep on their bed for 5 or 10 minutes. That's if you are lucky. I'm not going to go more into too much details because of time constraints and other reasons. But we have a rough number of the number of prisoners of conscience that the regime is holding. In the principal prison, which is in Yaoundé, we've got 20. In the central prison, we've got 220. In the Boya prison, we've got 400. That was the last count. It's probably up to 600 now or more. In the Douala prison, we've got 94, and in other detention centers around in and around Yaoundé, we've got 50. In Edea, 4. I'd just like to say here that this is far from being exhaustive. This is a rough estimate. There's more. Going back to the health situation, so far we are aware that 4 of the prisoners they lost the fight. We are aware of that, so they died basically. Again, there could be more, but this is what we have concrete evidence. And some of these prisoners were not arrested when this revolution started. Some of them have been in prison for years. I have 4 of the names here that I'm going to read out. Wersi Frederick died in the Yaoundé Central Prison on June 8, 2018. Roland Vitalis died in the Yaoundé Central Prison on March 5, 2018. D. Julius died in the Yaoundé Central Prison in 2018. There's no specific date. Kwe Simon Ngek died in the Bamenda Central Prison in 2018. He is a case that has been in prison for a very, very long time. I also want to emphasize that there are many females as well who have been held in detention. Many across both in Ambazonia and some from the Republic of Cameroon. I am mentioning this because we are a human rights activist group, and we are not just concerned about the people who are our relatives. We are not just concerned about the prisoners who are Ambazonians. We are concerned about every human being, whether in Ambazonia, whether in Nigeria, whether in Sierra Leone, every human being who is unjustly or wrongfully imprisoned, we are concerned. So we cannot just talk only about Ambazonia as much as that's in the central of everything that we do at the moment. We cannot just talk about that and forget about someone like Barrister Michel. This is an absolute barrister who has accomplished a lot and has gone out of her way to seek justice for people that she doesn't even know, and without demanding any payment. So I think that is right, just in case people get confused. Oh, why are you talking about Mission Doki issues from French Cameroon. No, we cannot do that. We cannot do what the oppressors are doing. We have to set it straight. That's why I'm doing this. But really, really important here is the case of the baby girl, Caleb. This is the youngest prisoner in our resolve to bring justice to Ambazonians. This is the youngest, Caleb. And the story is heartbreaking, to say the least. So let me give a little bit of context. Baby Caleb and his parents were arrested in Nigeria on 1st March 2018 and referred to French Cameroon. They represent a number of known and unknown refugees referred from Nigeria back to Cameroon. The known ones being the Nira 10 and Taraba 37 that our previous speaker just mentioned. The mother and baby were released in September 2018. The father is still being held. Supporters of the family are currently looking for funding for a major operation that's a medical operation that Caleb needs to rescue his eyesight. Without the operation, he will go blind due to the impact of lack of access to sunlight while in prison. Okay, this takes me to a statement from her mother. That statement was given to a journalist at SCBC TV on the 22nd of April 2019. Again, we know very well that there are some soldiers who have refused to fight against their own people or against causes that they think is morally wrong. And there's a word for them. They call them refugees. And Caleb's father was one of those. He refused to come and fight and kill his own people because he thinks the war is unjust and it is totally unnecessary because we can solve the issues on the table through dialogue. But I'm not going to take too much time with that. I'm just going to read very quickly a statement from Caleb's mother. Okay? My name is Fopa Rochelle Mboshifo. I was arrested on the 1st of March 2018 in Calabar alongside my son, Jingan Caleb Mboshifo, and 8 others, including my husband. Her husband is the refugee. We were taken to the military barracks same day, and late that night, I'm sorry, we're just reading it exactly the way she gave it to us. So there's a little bit of nuance. We were taken to the military barracks same day, and late in the night, we were moved to the police station. My son was putting on just a small t-shirt on him and was terribly sick before we were forced out of the house by the Nigerian army. They did not tell us our crime, even at the police station that night. We slept on the floor. We slept on the bare floor, as sick as my son was. Early in the morning, some lawyers came to the police station to see into our case, but we were smuggled again to the military barracks. Early in the morning, on the 3rd of March, at about 4 a.m. We were removed from where we were, locked up, chained, both hands and legs, put in a bus and taken to Abuja. My son still was half naked and sick. We arrived at Abuja at about 8 p.m. in the evening, and what I could manage to see was DSS. Because arriving there, they tied our eyes. We were moved into their building and then into the room, tied our eyes as in their eyes were banded. I never saw my husband since we were 3 women. We had our own room and they had theirs. We spent 7 more days in there until on Saturday, the 10th of March 2018. They came and told us they are taking us back to Calabar in a refuge camp. We were happy. They tied our eyes. We were happy as if they were happy, not happy to go to a refugee camp, but happy to at least leave the detention center. We were happy. They tied our eyes again, chained us, and put us in a bus that headed directly to the airport. I managed to pull down the tissue that my face was tied with. I saw the Cameroon military plane. We cried out until nothing could be done. While we were still in the bus, the Nigerian military left and went closer to the plane and discussed with other members. And then came back, and the second time collected a briefcase, immediately drove the bus closer to the plane, and we were forced out of the bus into the plane, well chained up with Cameroon military who were dressed in black. Again, as I explained earlier, there's a little bit of grammatical errors, and this is because someone has been writing under duress, and we don't want to edit it, okay? We were dressed in black. We were forced out of the bus into the plane, well chained up with Cameroon military. We were dressed in black. We were rough-handled. As few minutes later, we were flown to Cameroon. We landed in Yaoundé and were transferred into another bus with dark screens and taken to the National Gendarmerie Headquarters, SED. There, we were tortured, poured water, and all our dresses torn. My son, in that sick condition, kept crying, seeing all the torture. So they were tortured in front of this baby. We were taken into some small rooms and locked up with my son. Meanwhile, my husband and others were chained and put in another room, far off from where I was. I could only hear them scream from their rooms as they were beaten daily. I never saw my husband till I was released alongside my son. We spent 6 months without seeing the sun, as in SUN. My son will hang on the door and cry calling his daddy, but no one to listen or play with him. Instead, the gendarmes will come and intimidate him. He lived there all through, sick, no medical attention. We ate food that was always just prepared anyhow. As a woman, I lived there with no sanitary, no napkins. I spent 6 months with just a single dress on me. Ever since I was released from there, I and my son have been sick from one sickness to another until I have been operated upon once, and my son is pending operation as well. And all this is due to the poor health conditions that we were locked up.
Peace, good morning. I'm honored to be here and speak for these few minutes in solidarity and in support of Southern Cameroon, especially Ambazonia. I have to admit that I didn't know very much about Ambazonia. I've been learning there. But as a former political prisoner here in the U.S., I stand in support of all struggling people who struggle for their freedom against oppression, against all the things that we have been hearing that's happening to the people of Ambazonia. I work with the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition, one of the organizations I work with here in the U.S., where we try to bring attention and fight for the release of our U.S. held political prisoners and prisoners of war. And in most countries, the U.S. refuses to admit that they have political prisoners because of the criminalization of the black freedom struggle. We are told that our political activists are criminals, that they are prisoners, that they are imprisoned for crimes against the people, crimes against the state. So it is important that we claim and declare our own narrative, and we hear our comrades here do it. That's very much important, that we don't allow the oppressive forces to define who and what we are and what we are doing. Because it's the human right of people to struggle for their freedom, to be free, to be treated as human beings. I hear so many common traits being mentioned about what's going on in Ambazonia, as I hear, as I know that goes on here in the U.S. People in jails having bad food or not enough food, and those terrible food leading to bad health, not having proper health care, having terrible health care. In our struggle here, we've lost a number of comrades from lack of medical attention because they refuse to give them just the very simplest medical attention. I could name a number of brothers that have my own comrades that passed on because of the cohesive group, Abdullah, Majid, that shooting for me, and the day goes on and on. So these things are happening. That's a common occurrence with political prisoners, prisoners of conscience throughout the world. It's important that we struggle to get that out, to make people know that, and to have people protest that type of treatment. So it is important that, excuse me, I say it again, that we must make it clear that our political prisoners are heroes, those who fight for freedom, justice, equality, land, and independence. These are not criminals, these are heroes. These are the heroes of their people and should be the heroes of humanity. We all should remember who they are and give them credit for what they do. So I'm here to say we support the struggle of Ambazonia. They're prisoners of conscience, they're prisoners of war, they're political prisoners. We condemn the killing of civilians in places like the Minda. We support the call for a UN Human Rights Council to mandate an independent fact-finding mission in the what they call the Anglophone region of Cameroon. Did I say that right?
Yes.
We, Political Prisoner Coalition, we support that call. And we condemn the excessive sentences, the overcrowding of prisons all over. Same thing that happened here in the U.S. I was listening to the brother speak. He reminded me of when he mentioned how they arrested the child. Reminded me back in my case, back in 1981, one of our comrades, they went to their farm and arrested them and their children. And they had children so small that when they tried to put the cuffs on them, they couldn't get it tight enough. The hands were too small to just slid them out. So they went and got ties to tie their hands. So oppression seems to have the same face wherever we see it at. We have to be cognizant that this is the same struggle. We struggle here, and we hope you all will remember our struggle here too, and call for the release of our political prisoners, which we will be doing for you all. That's free all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Baba. It was really energizing to hear that after the heart-wrenching testimony from Brother Jan. And thank you, Meg, and thank you, Sister Shirley, and again, thank you as well. Thank you, everyone, for being here as we try to figure out what we have to do next in the face of this particular conflict. I want to start by saying that the need for a fact-finding mission is acute today, more than when we asked for it in February. In the last month, we've received reports of a number of alarming escalations of the violence that had intrigued and pushed us to ask for the fact-finding mission in February. One of the most scary part of what we've recently learned is the premeditation of the assault on our communities. We did know that the assault, the malicious targeting of communities was driving this displacement of people, which the United Nations had described in December as the fastest growing humanitarian human displacement, crisis-driven human displacement in December, but we never were able to have the facts to nail down the premeditative aspect of it. And so in February, on April the 4th, a document was leaked to a journalist of a list of villages that were being targeted to be burned. In the oppressed packages, we have that document included. And since then, 4 of those villages have been attacked and burned down, which for us is evidence of premeditation, which dramatically shift our perception and understanding of what is going on here. This was not triggered by anything any of us did in the diaspora, nor anything anybody in the ground did. This was just sheer malicious targeting of communities by this regime that it has been keeping on for the last since 2016, when our people for the first time had to respond to the cold-blooded massacre of peaceful protesters in the streets, as was reported by Amnesty and the rest. And so I would like to put a little bit of reference to these numbers again. In December, we were all outraged. Everybody was outraged that the number of displaced people were almost touching 500,000. Right? In December, the number of displaced people was 470,000, and everybody was totally outraged because just a few months before that, they were just 160,000. But on April 15th, the OCHA, the UN office, reported that the number of people affected now is 4 million. All right, you have to consider that, and in that 4 million, according to OCHA, 530,000 were just displaced, as opposed to the 470-something thousand we had in December. So what we are seeing here is not just, again, an escalation of violence driving massive displacement, but the tempo and the maliciousness of what has been happening is behind this driving force. In your press kit, you will see a report, an April 22nd report from the Director of Communication for the Diocese of Bamenda, who gave a report of the number of people killed just within the little period of the last 3 months, not as far back as 2016, when for the first time some people decided to defend their communities with force. When you look at these numbers, there's a very scary component to it at the rate at which it's being escalated, the malicious character of it, and the targeting of unarmed civilians in our communities. And so, in this context of that kind of a situation, and despite the victory, the minor victory that our sister highlighted in explaining what happened at the UN, the civil society coalition decided that the urgency of the situation warrants a fact-finding commission of our own. Not instead of that of the UN, but in addition to whatever fact-finding commission the UN might come up from. That was part of the decision that was arrived at in the coalition that sent this petition that started this process of why we are here today in the follow-up conference. And we're hoping that this coalition, this fact-finding committee, community fact-finding committee, would get off the ground probably sometime in the beginning of the fall, and we're getting to work right away to put it together. We're going to try. We're not trying to do it either before or after a time schedule of the UN. We're going to do our very best to make sure we do it thoroughly and properly. And right now, we're working with comrades from this coalition in South Africa as well as here to make sure that the coalition gets together the research resources and the capacity to be able to do this thorough and right, so that the UN, while dropping their ball, the civil society and the peace movement must not allow that be a deterrence to the ability of society to be able to confront what is an urgency in terms of the amount of people being killed, the regularity with which they are being killed by the longest running dictatorship on earth, which is the regime in Cameroon. There's no other dictatorship that has been in power longer than the one in Cameroon. And despite the help that they're getting from their other business partners to stay in power, civil society has been able to establish a lot of success in the past. Baba Odiga is evidence of proof that civil society can push back at the powerful to be able to get people their freedom. Right? It's not that the US government decided that, maybe you should go home. No, it's out of participation and community engagement and activism and resistance that we are able to have Baba with us. And so we are confident that a civil society-led fact-finding commission will be able to get us the numbers that we need, the facts that we need, and to be able to help us make sure that we stop this killing and that we are able to free all these political prisoners who deserve to be free and to be championing the freedom of their people from the north to the south, to the east, to the west of this globe. Thank you again for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you, everybody, so much for those wonderful comments. Some of them quite difficult to hear, but important. I want to open the floor for questions. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask?
I want to thank the panel for a very wonderful job, and I feel delighted and happy I'm here because I've learned quite a lot. I wanted to ask the last speaker, who are the members of the civil society or the various organizations that make up that civil society? So can you elaborate a little bit.
So the coalition that initiated this effort is a coalition of, let me go over there. So, thank you very much for that question. So in the press kit, thank you. So in the press kit, you have the coalition of organizations that initiated the petition on the basis of which we got the victory that Sister Shirley was able to go to Geneva to push. They were, can I get a second paper? So at this point, we're talking on this coalition, which includes, I'm trying to look at the number of organizations. Yeah, thank you very much. So this coalition includes quite a number of major organizations. Globally, it includes the International Fellowship of Reconciliation, which initiated the campaign for this petition that got this victory that Shelley was talking about out of their conference in Italy. It includes CDCCOM, which is the World Alliance for Citizen Participation. It includes the Dennis Harley Peace Institute in South Africa. It includes Pax Christi International, the Baptist Peace Fellowship of North America, the leadership of Presbyterian Church of USA, the leadership of the International Peace Research Association, which Baba Sekou is part of, and also it includes the Presbyterian Peace Fellowship, the Muslim Peace Fellowship, Zoglo Center in Switzerland, Sam Soya Center for Democracy, Truth Telling Project, Human Rights Institute of South Africa. Then we also have Red Hat, which is a French Cameroon-based human rights organization, and the Center for Human Rights and Democracy. It was also signed by the Communist Party of South Africa, which is part of the coalition of the ruling government of the ANC. And we just had Baba Sekou give support of this organization. The other organizations who wanted to sign it have lined up. So this is this coalition of peace movement and civil society organizations. And these are all big organizations, but we are also hoping that this next steps of the process will go beyond just listing organizations, but really getting the work done, which is what was started. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Let me just jump on that to add that there are a number of documents in the press packet that kind of will help you double click on what you've heard here. There is, in addition to the actual copy of the petition that we delivered to the UN Human Rights Council, there is also the copy of the UK letter that Shirley was talking about. I'm sorry, not the UK statement that was introduced to the floor of the UN Human Rights Council and signed by 37 other member states. And there also is the selection of the special rapporteur's report on the situation of human rights defenders that Sister Meg was referring to, which includes a reference to 2 Amazonian political prisoners. There's a copy of the statement of the High Court of Nigeria. So we really want people to be able to follow up. There's also a copy of the statement of the mother of baby Caleb, and the names of the people who have died in jail that Johnny read. Other questions?
Yes. Silas here for SCBC TV. What sort of challenges since the last press conference that you guys had, what sort of challenges did you guys encounter trying to meet up with either government or other organizations in pursuit of this mission? If any,
What sort of
challenges, yes,
did our coalition face in trying to meet up with
government and put up this petition through the UN or meeting with other governments like you just mentioned about the UK and all of that? Did you guys meet any challenges?
I would say we met the regular challenges of bureaucracy, right? There was a lot of bureaucratic challenges that are not really set like in our path as we bring this forward, but I think is just part and parcel of the United Nations and how things operate there. And I feel like that's a little bit unfortunate because it does make it more difficult for us to do the work that we need to do, and for things to be more effective about bringing about change, right? I think that, I hope that in the future, we can bring the UN back to being more about like civil society as opposed to the member states. The member states have a very strong voice and a very strong say on how things happen. And I personally feel this is not the voice of the organization that I represent, but I personally feel like this takes away from the impact or the purpose of the United Nations, because if it's just the member states dictating how things happen or like what you can say or how you can maneuver around, it makes it extremely difficult to bring about change, because they're always going to vote in their interest, and there are different ways that they can come together to gather allies, you know, through money or through like through just for economic force, right? You can say states have said to other states, like, if you don't vote in my direction, like, you know,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna take away this support. Or maybe they don't say that directly, but when somebody controls your money, they control your life, right? Like economics is like true freedom. And unfortunately, we have a large majority of states, and especially in the global south, that do not control their economics. Up in Haiti, recently Haiti voted to be a part of something against the state of Venezuela, which was not only very disturbing to me and a lot of other Haitians, but it was like completely foreign to what Haiti is about. And actually, when Haiti was having the Haitian Revolution, Simon Bolivar was actually in Haiti, right? He was one of our allies, and we were one of his allies. The blue and red of the Colombian flag that he helped to establish Colombia actually comes from the blue and red of the Haitian flag, right? Because he was in Haiti at the time. So, and it's, for people who don't know, Simon Bolivar is Venezuelan, right?
Yeah.
A lot of really great, amazing freedom fighters have been from Venezuela. So for us to now, and having such a long, long history with Venezuela, not just in the past, but basically throughout, you know, they've sent oil to us, they've helped us when other people haven't. For us to like vote in a direction that really took away the voice of the public, right? And side with the voice of the governmental bodies, was just like, I don't even know. Like,
Yeah, I get it. I'm gonna have quite a little bit of questions, if that's fine with you. Bro, I even mentioned earlier the escalation since everything went through. He also said your organizations will be taking a step further, like to have your own fact finding mission together. How effective can that be? Is it something that is plausible, knowing that even a big organization like the UN either was timid to mandate that fact-finding mission, but they went for a lesser option, I would say. So how effective would this next move that the GI3C is trying to take, how effective could that be?
Sure, that's a good question. So it's not that the UN has like the UN umbrella is timid, right? It's that there are member states, right? I mean, of course, the member states make the UN umbrella,
Yes.
right? So you have to like fire under them in order for people to start saying, like, okay, we have to do something, right?
So how will
Sure.
an
So
independent
I'll get
work?
into that.
Yeah. Okay.
So when South Africa was under apartheid and fighting for apartheid, the way the story is told is like everybody was on the side of Mandela and everyone, right? That's not true. It was actually the people that made it happen. And actually, when the Irish dock workers decided, like, we are not going to be a part of this, and we will not unload this like anything that's coming from South Africa onto these docks, that's what made Britain like pay attention and really do something, because now it was like spilling out into like their work, right? So, right, I lived in Britain for a short time, and they have a statue of Mandela, but it's really funny because at one point they determined that he was like a terrorist, right? The U.S., there was a point in time where somebody from, I think it was Nelson Mandela himself or somebody was going to come visit the U.S., and Hillary Clinton had to hurry up and take them off the U.S. terrorist list because they had put the South African freedom fighters, as terrorists in the United States. So all of this, like now, countries will be Mandela or Gandhi or whoever, but these change did not come from them. It came from us. So what will it change? It will change the fact that we, like, they can't deny our voices, right? And when you raise your voices enough, you make enough noise, and it can affect the change you need to see.
Yes, another question. I'm going to have quite a number of them coming. You guys are insisting on a fact-finding mission. The last time I was here, we went back to our communities, the Ambazonian community, and we explained quite a lot about that. Most of them get it, and they applaud that. But there are others who think that why not a peacekeeping mission? Because the killings that are going on, it's so overwhelming for them, and they feel that a peacekeeping mission could be a quicker way to bring peace than to send a fact-finding mission that is a process and then to come back. So what is the difference, or which one is? Or is now within your jurisdiction to ask for a peacekeeping mission? I just want to find out.
Yes, so the basic, what we're trying to do is establish the foundation for the necessary actions to be taken. In other words, whether it's a peacekeeping mission or whatever, they have to be based on some level of agreeable facts. What Cameroon has been doing lately is to try to contest all the facts, right? And so first they contest the facts, then they refuse human rights organizations and international organizations to be able to check the numbers to see what's going on. So, but the fact-finding mission it sounds like it's just about information, but the history shows that fact-finding mission communicates to the oppressor that will be accountability. And every time a fact-finding mission has been mandated, whether it is by a UN institution or just undertaken by civil society, the violence in every context has gone down, because the perpetrators of the violence know that with this going on, there will be accountability. They know that once that starts happening. When the fact-finding mission was mandated for Sri Lanka, the violence went down to less than 5%. Right? When the fact-finding mission was mandated for Myanmar, in case of the case for the Rohingya, the violence went down dramatically. The same thing with Burundi. So the recent history of fact-finding missions is that it communicates with the oppressor, and it also deprives them of any legal standing with some allies that try to play games, right? Because, and also in a lot of countries like in the United States, and I think also in a lot of European countries, once some of these pieces start falling into place, there are certain legal obligations that at least suddenly become on the desk. And so when we talk of fact-finding mission, what we are really going for, what we're trying to achieve is to stop the killings. That's what we're trying to do. Stop the killings as soon as we can. And the experience is that it seems to be a lot easier to get a fact-finding commission than to get a peacekeeping mission. Because all peacekeeping missions are based on some law that was passed that is based on some facts that were developed from a fact-finding mission. And so this is all part of the pieces of the puzzle. And we also understand that it's very easy as a civil society and as peace movement to ask for fact-finding mission. The experience that we have is that sometimes peacekeeping missions have been manipulated or used as a manipulation. For example, when the situations in Ivory Coast got out of hand, right? The French asked for a peacekeeping mission, except that the peacekeeping mission was the French who went there, overthrew the democratically elected president, and replaced him with whoever they wanted. Right? So we try to avoid getting caught up in their game. And I think there's a lot of history in the United States, especially with reference to the case of Vietnam, that the civil society is able to push the train of peace and stopping conflict without opening itself up for manipulation by political players in the name of peacekeeping missions.
Thank you, Brother Eben. One more, another question. This time on the refugees. We just listened to that touching story there of Caleb. That's something. The kinds of stories that there are many stories like that. Those of us who are close to the communities, we get a lot of such stories, and it's really heartbreaking. So my question is, the question about a fact-finding mission, a lot of these things are happening within Nigeria, and is it accounted for, or do we need another fact-finding mission to Nigeria to get all this data and maybe get Nigeria, compel Nigeria to be more concerned about the refugee situations over there? Because like in that message from the mother, the Nigerian military was actually the one carrying out these actions on refugees. So what can the organization do?
Yeah, so let's look at the last fact-finding mission that we had to deal with was the one in Myanmar. When the first piece of it was passed, the Myanmar government was like, we're not going to give them visas. Let's see what they're going to do. Well, some of the members of that fact-finding mission flew to Bangladesh, where most of the refugees were, to interview the refugees for their testimonies. They even flew to London for some officials who were in exile in London to get testimony. So you're trying to establish the facts, not just about a small piece of it. You want to establish all the facts about the conflict. And so definitely, our civil society fact-finding mission will go to Nigeria to talk with the refugees. We will go to London to talk to Honorable Weaver, who is in exile there. We will. So the fact-finding mission, just like the one in Myanmar, when the Myanmar government realized the idea of not giving them visas to get to Myanmar was a lame idea. That's why they changed their opinion later on, right? They put together a team of experts who were able to use satellite data to establish where villages they didn't need to go to Myanmar. But the Myanmar government lost an opportunity to argue its case in some of the testimonies that were being given. And that's when they changed their opinion and said, okay, you guys can come in here. So we are convinced that the Cameroon government has no way to stop this fact-finding mission. It's going to do its job, it's going to get the data, it's going to get enough data, it's going to be in the interest of the Cameroon government to allow the fact-finding mission to get into Cameroon so that they can explain some facts that might not look very clear to a staff of just experts that are looking at data the way it comes. So establishing the facts is establishing all the facts about the conflict.
Thank you.
So we have a full picture.
Thank you, Abraham. One more question. Now I want to touch on the prisoners.
Okay.
Yes.
Should I stand here?
Yeah.
Is that for me or?
Well, whoever can take the question.
Okay.
Yes. The situation of the prisoners, as explained by Brother Ajani, the deteriorating situation. Apart from the advocacy that we are all doing, is there any form of assistance? Because the way they are surviving there, it's terrible, and it's something that most people are looking up to organizations, and our people will listen to people come together. They would feel like maybe they can help to keep them alive while we fight for their freedom. Is there anything or any mechanism put in place to sustain them, and how can someone help?
Yes, so there are a couple of organizations. One of them is based out of, there are a couple of organizations in Nigeria. MAWA is one of our organizations run by an Ambazonia who is based in Canada, and a couple of people also based in Nigeria. The Ambazonia Prisoners of Conscience Support Network is part of a network of organizations. There are also other European organizations, groups based in Europe that are supporting the prisoners. There's Brother Chris Mosevini, who is in DC, who's running solidarity campaign for the prisoners. There are a couple of things that have happened. One of the things that have happened is that because of the push of the campaign, the Cameroon government was helpless and it allowed the Red Cross to see the prisoners. Before, the Cameroon government refused to allow the Red Cross to see the prisoners. Because of the push, the Red Cross was able to see the prisoners, but there were a couple of really horrible things that happened. For example, the day when the Red Cross was in the prisons to see when the Caleb family, when Caleb and his mom were still there, our sources in the prison indicated that the Cameroon government hid the baby and the mother away from the Red Cross, right? Because they knew they were doing something wrong, otherwise they would not. If they thought they were legitimately there, they would have not had to hide it. So there's that kind of, the Red Cross, I'm trying to expose the limits of what the Red Cross can do. But the Red Cross is trying at this point to be a source of communication. It's been more than 4 months from the information we got from the Ambazonia prisoners of conscience. There have been twice that the Red Cross promised to visit and that the Cameroon government did not allow it since their last visit. So we have to push that end. On the end of solidarity support for the prisoners, there is, unfortunately, like prisons have become a kind of an unfortunate business. There is possibility to fund mattresses for the prisoners, right? So that we can try to get some of them to even just lie in the hallways when the authorities can allow that to happen. So there are, again, there's the Ambazonia Prisoner of Conscience Support Network. There's an activist in Washington, D.C. called Christmas Evini who's doing some work. There's Mawa. Mawa is the biggest one that I know. And I know there are a couple of others that are trying to get resources to support the prisoners in terms of being able to, the funny thing that a lot of people do not know is that the limited health situation that there are constantly emergency situations coming up. We need to be able to provide some money in the accounts of the prisoners so that when these emergency situations pop up, there is some resources to immediately take care of that. So yes, there are organizations that are able to direct resources to the prisoners even though they are in jail. So I think somewhere in our
Press package.
There's information about, and then there's of course, thank you for that. There's Red Hat,
Okay.
which was the first organization to get to see the prisoners, and they have been also leading a thorough campaign to access. In fact, it was Red Hat that led the charge that forced the government to allow Red Cross to get in there. So Red Hat has been doing a lot of work in terms of breaking through the barriers to access the prisoners. But again, the prisoners need resources, and there are organizations that are able to get resources to the prisoners. So just like I said again, there's Malware, they are online, and there's in the Ambazonia refugee community in Nigeria, there are a couple of networks in there that are able to fund the accounts of the prisoners. That the great thing about it is that the prisoners are well organized themselves. They have their solidarity project when they can communicate. And so when they can communicate, but they do have respect for themselves. They have that approach where you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm supporting that prisoner, I'm not supporting that prisoner. If you can get resources and you know an organization, we have contacts to the Ambazonia Prisoner of Conscience Network. Again, like I said, I listed a couple. If you send your resources to any of the prisoners, don't feel like, well, how about all the other 30,000, you know? The prisoners do need every penny they can get. We need to be able to stop. The government tried to do some kind of dark trials for people without lawyers and without any information, and the prisoners were able to mobilize resources to stop one of those trials, because nobody else knew. For all the solidarity network people out, the prisoners figured it out about less than 24 hours, and they were able to mobilize resources through a network and got word and got a lawyer to go to the court and stop that process. So I want to say that the prisoners need resources, and they are trying to get to them.
One more question on the on prisoners, and then I will come to Baba Sekou here. The Abuja court ruling that actually pointed out that the abduction of the Naira 10 was illegal. Is this organization exploring that ruling to advance the cause of the Naira 10?
I'll say yes. So we're a coalition, right?
Yes.
Red Hat is part of our coalition member. Red Hat was part of the coalition in the European Union that helped write the European Union resolution that just passed that called out Cameroon for all the trials and all the locking up, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, did we hold a coalition meeting to discuss that specific? No, we're a coalition. That means that when people are working on certain parts of how to, hold the government accountable, that part of the network changes information, and we help work on some of these resolutions. We didn't work on the particular one, the European Union, but we do. There are people right now in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt on the African Commission of Human Rights, and we're working with them to hold the government accountable in that respect. The way to go is to make sure there's no excuse, there's no space to hide, and there's not a single. We must still tie the narrative of what kind of regime we're dealing with here. Once we do that, or if we succeed to do that, then the only other option is for the regime to either implode or be held accountable properly. So, are we working on the
Exploring the Abuja.
on exploring the Abuja resolution? The answer is absolutely yes, because some Ambazonian groups that we have superficial contacts with funded that trial in Abuja. Right, we did the Epox network did not, or some of our members who are coalition members not. The Ambazonian groups funded the lawyers which handled that trial. The lawyer gave the Nigerian government a couple of days that if the Nigerian government did not respond to the request of the judge that they should bring back all the prisoners, that they were going to sue the government further for damages, and that they were taking the government already right now to the African Court of Human Rights, and that they will further escalate the legal situation. So we, again, as a coalition, we have members who are working across the board, and we're trying our very best to make sure every legal opportunity, every human rights opportunity, every platform, every table, every door, every block, every speech, every conference, we will be there. We must make sure that this regime has no space to wiggle around or any excuses, right? They never expected that the European Union would do what it just did. The African Union is going to wrap up its operations probably in a week or two. There will be another hammer from that end. This is how struggles go, and we, in a very paradoxical way, we are fortunate there's enough history of how other people fought and how people have been able to push the ball down the field. We should be able to learn from that history and use it to free ourselves and to end the carnage that is going on in our communities back home.
Thank you.
Time for one more question?
Yes. Yeah, maybe my last question.
Pause for a second.
Okay.
Did anybody else have a question? Okay, you.
Oh, me. All right. Yes. Yeah. I wanted to just say personally, I'm very happy to meet Baba Sekou here. Thank you for sharing your experience with our people. You just Ayub Julius Tabe is someone who the Ambazonian community hold dear to their hearts, and what him and thousands of our people are going through right now in the dungeons of French Cameroon over there is really heartfelt. And someone like you who've gone through a similar experience, to share your story here means a lot to our people. I believe all of them watching right now really can relate with that, and will really be appreciative of your being here today and you supporting efforts to see that those of them who are suffering back there can get their freedom. I want to find out, what is it in your experience as a political prisoner that gives you, like what experiences from your own perspective as a political prisoner that you can advise our people to support their fellow comrades who are also held in captivity in prison in Cameroon? Is there any particular, as a prisoner, what do you need? Some of us who have not been to prison, in such prisons before, what can those who are outside do to keep the spirit of those who are in prison, to keep them in the same direction?
There's so much that can be done. Letting the prisoner know that you know what he or she is going through. Letting them know that you agree with their just struggle, that you're not struggling alone. Letting them know that you're going to carry on that just struggle. Going to those in charge and demanding that they get the different things that they're supposed to have, whether it be health care, whether it be decent food, whether it be allowing their families to visit, whether it be writing letters, or, I mean, we've been in places where they wouldn't let the mail go out, or they wouldn't let mail go in. So just supporting their needs, going going to the prisoners themselves and asking them the same question you just asked me. What is it that you need that we can do to help so much?
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, thank you, everybody. You can check out our website for more information. The website for the coalition is globalinitiative3c.org. That stands for the Global Initiative to End the Cameroon's Colonial Conflict, which is the name that we've given to this ad hoc project. And we will continue it on and welcome your participation. Thank you.
Thank you.
You forgot to mention the other website that has a lot of information about the prisoners. That's the APOX website.
I am glad to put a reminder for you. Thank you. So there is, as Evan already shared, there are a number of groups doing prison solidarity work. And if you'd like to find out more about that in specific, you could visit Ambazonia. Right, I'm just trying to remember. Ambazonia Prisoners of Conscience Support Network, which is ambazoniapocs.net.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Is it in the press package?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that one is specifically, there's an article printed out near the end of the press package and it has the URL on the bottom.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
And if anybody that's watching this feed wants a copy of the press packet, you can email info@globalinitiative3c.org and we will email you a copy of the press packet. Thanks, everybody.